Go ahead and let you take over, Randy. Let's start the meeting.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get the meeting started. This is a special hearing. Today is September the 29th. It's 2:30, and we need to do a roll call to make sure everyone's present, that we have a quorum.
Mark Brudd,
Present.
Benny Jones,
Yes.
Reese Smith,
Here, and I have a question before we get started. Go ahead.
okay, and Keith Whittington,
Yes.
and Randy Chase.
Yes.
Okay.
Reese, you got a question?
Yes, I just want to make sure that we're having this meeting with proper notice to all parties as per the rules and regs and the laws. Can
May I chime in on this, please?
Identify yourself, yes.
This is Attorney Joe Calvert for James Kenton.
Well, I was looking for a state attorney, but
Okay.
go ahead.
I'll jump in first. This is Jesse Gentry, and then Mr. Calvert, I'll let you respond. I was actually just about to ask if you were on the call. Is your client, Mr. Kenton, on the call?
No, just I am.
Okay. Was he able to participate in the hearing today? Have you spoken to him about participating today?
Yeah, he couldn't do this. Notice wasn't found until this morning, and there was no mail notice.
Okay. So, I'll read, I guess, the section as to what we had set for today, and then if Mr. Calvert wants to respond, and then we can let the board, I suppose, make a determination. But we have, so we had 2 complaints, and then an administratively open complaint against Mr. Kenton on his license. And based on some research that we did into these allegations, we thought that an emergency action may be appropriate, determining a summary suspension pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 45320. That section under D says, notwithstanding subsection C, in issuing an order of summary action against a license, the agency shall use one of the following procedures. A, the agency shall issue a notice to the licensee providing an opportunity for a prompt informal hearing, review, or conference before the agency prior to the issuance of an order of summary action. Or B, the agency shall proceed with the summary action and notify the licensee of the opportunity for an informal hearing, review, or conference before the agency within 7 business days of the issuance of the order of summary action. Then under subsection 2, it says the notice provided to the licensee may be provided by any reasonable means and shall inform the licensee of the reason for the action or intended action of the agency and the opportunity for an informal hearing, review, or conference before the agency. The informal hearing, review, or conference described by this subsection D shall not be required to be held under the contested case provisions of this chapter. The hearing, review, or conference is intended to provide an informal, reasonable opportunity for the licensee to present the licensee's version of the situation to the person or entity authorized by law to take the summary action against the license involved. Whether the informal hearing, review, or conference is held before an order of summary action, the sole issue to be considered is whether public health, safety, or welfare imperatively required emergency action by the agency. Based on that, we've done some research, and our office, we talked with Carolyn as well as other legal in our office, and we were getting things arranged. We proceeded under subsection A to give some notice, since the statute does say reasonable means. The license shall be provided by any reasonable means and shall inform the licensee of the reasons for the action or intended action. So we, when we got the WebEx information set up to set this hearing today at 2 o'clock, we sent a letter via email to the respondent at the email address on his license application. After it was determined that the meeting would have to take place at 2:30, and in that one from yesterday, we also put the link to the website where the WebEx information would be posted today for today's hearing. And then we had today sent a second letter just to update the respondent with the corrected time of 2:30 instead of 2 o'clock, as well as included the phone number since we had that for the WebEx as well. So I spoke with Mr. Calvert, who represents Mr. Kenton. I'd called his client earlier today. I was not aware that Mr. Calvert was representing Mr. Kenton. So I called Mr. Kenton, left a voicemail of the action today. The board could proceed under either of those sections by providing notice and then having a hearing, or by having a hearing, taking summary action, and then giving the respondent action within 7 days to request a hearing on that. So when I spoke with Mr. Calvert, I did inform him that we were proceeding to give him notice. I asked if notice was reasonable, if his client would participate. He said he would be able to participate today in today's hearing. So I do believe under the statute we have given reasonable notice, since it does say by any means. That could be by email, could be by phone, could be by mailing. However, if Mr. Calvert does not believe that his client had reasonable notice and would like to either request another hearing within 7 business days, I think the board could consider that if Mr. Calvert is either requesting a continuance or not finding that he's able to actively participate in today's hearing. So, Mr. Calvert, I don't want to speak for you too much. Did you have a response for that or to that?
No, but 45320 C says notice by mail to the licensee of facts or conduct that would warrant the intended action. It's very specific in the statute, but we're here, so why don't we continue?
Okay. Let's see. So that's the purpose of today, is just to look at whether or not there's a necessary means for emergency action, and the potential discipline the board could issue today would be a summary suspension of a license, and that would be basically until we'd be able to set a formal revocation hearing or just a hearing on discipline for that. But that's the sole issue to be considered, is whether or not public health, safety, or welfare imperatively requires this emergency action. So like I said, we had 2 complaints that had been opened, and then we opened an administrative one based on some concerns. Mr. Kenton received a license, a home improvement license from our office. It was granted in April of this year. And since then, we've received 2 complaints from customers. One has been closed with a consent order and a $1,000 penalty that was due to he'd performed work as a home improvement contractor before he was granted his license. And the other case, I believe, was presented on the legal report. It may not have required a home improvement contractor's license based on the amount of money that was involved. The third complaint, the administrative one that was opened, was due to both of these complaints had referenced another company, Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated, which we did not have listed on Mr. Kenton's license. So when we started doing some digging, we looked into his application for his home improvement contractor license, and had received some information from some outside sources about some other concerns. We looked into statements that were made on the application, specifically on Mr. Kenton's application for the home improvement contractor license. So I will pull that up so I have it in front of me. He had stated under the questions asking whether or not there was a history of actions against previous licenses. He had stated no for that. He had stated that he's never, the question asking whether Mr. Kenton or any of the owners, officers, or individuals associated with entity's business, to the best of their knowledge, had a license denied, suspended, or revoked in Tennessee or any other state. Mr. Kenton had stated no on his application. And then there was a subsequent question of whether or not he had any, whether or not any of those individuals had any recorded complaints from any state agency or consumer. He'd also stated no on that. We did some research. We found that he had previously, there was a license in the state of Massachusetts under another company, Carefree Roofing Incorporated.
No, it's Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated.
I'm sorry, thank you, Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated. When we pulled up the Massachusetts website, that's where the license was in the state of Massachusetts. There were 4 complaints over the past, I believe, since 2015. And his license, or the license for Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated, has been revoked by that state.
No,
On that,
it hasn't been revoked. It's been administratively dissolved. Well, the corporation.
okay. Well, on the website, it does state that the status states revoked. So when I
Okay.
pulled that up, it said the responsible individual for Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated is Kenton, James. So we had immediately had an issue there with this history of complaints not being disclosed, as well as this license allegedly being revoked with the date it shows as March 13th, 2017, and those complaints being received as earliest as August 2015. There was another one in August 2015, a complaint in September 2016, and a complaint in June 2017. We have not.
No, actually, your second one should read August of 2016.
Okay, did I say 2015?
Yeah.
I apologize, 2016. And when we've requested documents on those, but that is a concern. And then we also have another issue with these complaints, as well as this license is in the name of James Kenton, this home improvement contractor license. And when we received these complaints from consumers, the contracts all were between the customers and Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated. Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated does not have any type of license from the board. It was our understanding from reviewing these complaints that Mr. Kenton is operating under this name. I believe Mr. Calvert has some more information that he can provide for that. I pulled up the information for Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated. There's the registered agent for that company is just listed as Registered Agents Incorporated. So Mr. Kenton's not necessarily listed on that business, but there could be, I suppose, either be an issue in 2 different ways, depending on how the board wants to view it. Either one, Mr. Kenton is allowing his license to be used by an unlicensed company to perform work that's unlicensed, or 2, he is operating under his license under a name that is not registered with the board. So either way, depending on how he can provide clarity, there's kind of 2 concerns I think we need to flesh out today. But the main concern that we have proof of is this issue of these revoked licenses, or the revoked license in Massachusetts, as well as this complaint history that wasn't disclosed to the board. Based on that revoked license, if it was revoked, and had he disclosed that to the board initially, I don't believe that the board would have granted that license. And based on these complaints that are coming in, I think there's a concern for the public that we have an individual who may not be using their license properly. So I suppose, Mr. Calvert, did you have some information that you wanted to provide at this point, or
Yes,
argument?
I did. I looked at the home improvement contractors registration. Okay, and the registrant, the registration number this is in Massachusetts that you initially raised. The registration number is 181244. The registrant, that means the owner of the license, is Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc. It's an incorporated business. An incorporated business is independent from any individual. This is the law in all 50 states. It's never changed. It's been this way for 100 years that I know of, probably longer. Okay. Mr. Kenton is a contact. I think there should be another contact, but I'm not sure, but I can't find it, of Chris Agnew. But he's the contact. I mean, that's no different than being the registered agent for the corporation. Again, but when you look, I'm looking right at it right at this moment. I suspect it's the same page you have. And it specifically designates Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated is the registrant of the license. Now, Mr. Kenton, I think Mr. Kenton would have a reasonable belief that the corporation holds the license, and in different states there are different methods of licensing. Some are to corporations, some are to individuals, some are to partnerships. However, based on his knowledge and information and belief, this entire issue with Massachusetts was between the state of Massachusetts and Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc., not him personally.
How was he associated with that company?
Probably, I suspect, as an independent contractor, as almost everywhere he's ever worked. I mean, corporations aren't owned by anyone. It's impossible. There's a Harvard professor who uses a great example. If I own shares of American Airlines, do you think they're going to go let me use their airplanes because I'm a shareholder? So he could have held an officer position. He could have held an independent contractor position, but it doesn't change the fact that it's the registrant in this state of Massachusetts is listed specifically as Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc.
I guess I guess the question is, the application says an individual associated with an entity's business. He's clearly on this page that we're looking at. Is he not clearly associated with it? It shows him as the responsible individual.
No, it shows as a contact.
It says responsible individual.
No, I'm looking at this. This says registrant, Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc. It gives the name of James Kenton at 294 Ocean Street, Marshfield, Mass. 02050. And when I cross-reference this with the corporate database for Massachusetts for Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc., it has Mr. Kenton listed only as a contact.
Okay, so we're actually looking at two separate forms then.
There's two. Of course. I mean, if we looked at the state of Massachusetts Secretary of State database, it gives Mr. Kenton as the contact. It would be just like being a registered agent. I, as an attorney, can be a registered agent for anyone. It's primarily for service of processing and contact. Okay. As far as the consumer affairs issue, it says that the registrant for the license is Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc., and the registration number is 181244.
Okay, so I think I guess what I'm getting at is we're looking at two separate forms on the Office of Consumer Affairs. There's one that shows the complaint numbers, which I think is the one you're looking at.
Yes, I have that in front of me.
And then there's a second one that shows registrant name, Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc., responsible individual, Kenton, James, registration number 181244, then the address, expiration date, status, the status of the license, revoked.
Okay, I just show the expiration is 3/13/2017. It doesn't. I see the complaints that you referred to. That's how I was able to correct you, but I do not see that on their website. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. It's a moot issue. Corporations are not synonymous with officers, employees, shareholders, or anything else. Corporations are completely separate entities. Okay, they have their own Social Security number, known as an employer identification number, or sometimes known as a federal employer identification number, depending on what you're looking at, right? And it's a moot issue to try to impute corporate status to Mr. Kenton, because that's what you'd say. You'd be saying Mr. Kenton is the corporation, and it's just not possible. And it's never been possible in any state's jurisprudence, and it just doesn't exist.
Let me read the application question again. In accordance of TCA section 626501, please answer on behalf of you for all officers, owners, or individuals associated with this entity's business, including any key personnel who will be acting on behalf of the business to the best of your knowledge. And then it says, have you had a license denied, suspended, or revoked in Tennessee or any other state, or associated with any business as an employee which had a license denied, suspended, or revoked?
And the correct answer is no, because the word employee implies that he was an employee of the organization, not an independent contractor. So, for example, if you, Mr. Gentry, opened up Gentry's Basket Weaving, right? I could be an independent contractor to that company, but it doesn't mean I have anything whatsoever to do with the company itself.
But the question from the first part is, or individuals associated with this entity's business. Are you saying that Mr. Kenton is not associated with Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated in Massachusetts?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think he can be. Again, and to the best of his knowledge, definitely not. This is what he and I discussed.
So did someone else put his contact information as the responsible individual?
No, it's possible, but it doesn't matter. Again, I could take your. I mean, lawyers do it all the time. We become the registered agent for all sorts of corporations. I've been doing it for 20 years. There's no issue with it. It doesn't mean I have anything whatsoever to do with the corporation. And recently, in July 29th of last year, I'm looking for the case. The Tennessee Supreme Court. Just bear with me. I've got to find this. I'll read you. Anyway, I'll give you the gist of it. Tennessee Supreme Court changed the way we view corporations and people who are non-employees as being subject to privilege because they're not part of the corporation. They may be doing a job that might be an employee, but they're not an employee. And that's not necessarily an association. That's an independent contract. If you hired me to be your lawyer for the board, I could not be your lawyer for the board and be presumed to be part of the board.
The question is not employed, it's an individual associated. So I hear your argument.
Then you're going to have to define associated for me because now I'm confused.
Well, I think saying that you're the responsible individual would show associated, but
you're the contact individual. Like, again, you see a page I don't see. I see contacts, and that's what I see on the Secretary of State's website also.
Have you been able to go?
But nothing else.
Have you been able to go to the arbitration cases for the state of Massachusetts under this license?
No, I don't have access to that because I'm not an attorney in Massachusetts.
Okay. And I'm not either. It says on that same page that we're on, you're able to, there's a button down there that talks about going to the arbitration of these cases.
Let me look. Just bear with me. Go ahead. I'll look while you talk.
Okay. Are you aware that the complaint on there, which is 16-HIC-ARB 068, the status of that case was that the contractor, Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated, failed to pay or appeal award in 21 days, which was based on a $10,000 penalty that appears to have been issued against Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated.
Okay, I think you've answered your own question. Against Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated, that's not Mr. Kenton individually.
Are you aware of that?
No, and I can't find this on the site. I just typed into the arbitration section that you check on a contractor's arbitration and guarantee fund history. I typed in Carefree Metal Roofing Inc. Nothing came up whatsoever.
Okay. And on that page, it also does say the responsible individual, again, listed as James Kenton under the registered business name. So again, are you saying that he is, even though he's listed as the responsible individual, not associated with this business?
Yeah, he doesn't have to be associated with that business. That's correct. I think when Mr. Kenton read your application, I think he answered it honestly. He, to the best of his knowledge, it's a corporation. It's independent from him. That's the whole point of having a corporation or LLC, to keep it independent from anyone. It's its own person. Okay, I mean the law of contracts says corporations in every state says a corporation is a fictitious person. It's just like being a real person, except there's nobody.
Okay.
So he would never have any reason to believe otherwise. That weren't true. He's not an attorney. He's just a working guy.
Okay.
And he provides, and he's provided outside counsel services to many people, I'm sure, over the years. So he makes his living.
Do you dispute that license for Carefree Metal Roofing Incorporated was revoked?
No, I know it was revoked.
Okay. Do you dispute that there were 4 complaints out of the state of Massachusetts against
Well,
Carefree Metal
I
Roofing?
believe there might be 4 complaints. I can't see the complaints, so I can't respond to any of them.
Okay.
We could look at, I mean, what's interesting is we could look at News Channel 5, right? Great people, really diligent, and we could see how many lawsuits were filed against them in the past 2 years. Okay? It doesn't tell us anything. It just tells us that lawsuits were filed, nor does it tell us if there were any resolution to those, because it wouldn't be available.
Okay. Well, and I think that's the concern, though, is was a resolution. The contract or the license was revoked.
For Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc., not for James Kenton.
Okay. So under the section then where it says, and again, it goes back to that top section, in accordance with Tennessee Code Annotated, section 626501, please answer behalf on you for all owners, officers, or individuals associated with this entity's business, including key personnel who will be acting on behalf of the business to the best of your knowledge. Do you have do you have a record of construction complaints from any state agency or consumer? That
right, and to the best of your knowledge, do you have any record? That's the question, and the question is that no, there was no record against James Kenton.
Okay, but again, the question asks an individual associated with, and you were saying that Mr. Kenton was not associated with this business. Is that correct?
I'm saying that this business is independent of Mr. Kenton. Yeah, I mean, yes, I guess I have to say that because they can't be the same person. It's impossible. Now, hold on. Let me just. I want to be. I want to be as clear and as transparent as possible. If Carefree Metal Roofing was not an incorporated business, I would have a completely different answer.
Okay. Are you aware then that Mr. Kenton later put on his application when he talks about his work experience that he was employed as a subcontractor of Carefree Metal Roofing for approximately 6 years?
I'll take your word for it. So he's a subcontractor. That doesn't mean he has anything to do with Carefree Metal Roofing. I mean, this is a matter of, again, this is all a matter of business and corporate law, which I've been teaching for 20 years. It doesn't. I mean, if I call DoorDash, right, to deliver me McDonald's, and when it gets there, the order's wrong, is DoorDash responsible or is McDonald's?
I don't think that's relevant here. And so we're asking specifically if he's associated, and he's saying no, he's not associated, and then he's later saying, yes, I'm a subcontractor then, I did that for 6 years.
Okay, but again, then I have to question, and I'm not trying to be rude or even argumentative. I just want this straightened out. So you're going to have to define associated for me because it's clearly not in your statute.
Okay, and
I mean, I think Mr. Kenton had no reason not to disclose this if this were an issue. The whole idea is he's telling you what he knows. You know, and that Carefree Metal Roofing, Inc. had the license. Okay.
And even though he's listed as the responsible party for that, again, he's saying he's not. He's not associated.
I think he's listed as a contact. I don't know if he's I don't know how you would define responsible party, and neither you nor I, unfortunately, have a license in Massachusetts. So if we even tried to speculate on that, we'd be engaging in unauthorized practice of law in Massachusetts.
Okay. Well, I think we can move on. I think unless any board members have questions about that specific issue. Okay. Now I would like to move on to the issue with the Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated contracts and that business. When you and I had spoken about this earlier, and I'll let you explain because I don't want to speak for you, but you had stated that Mr. Kenton was not the owner of Tennessee Metal Roofing
Inc.
Incorporated. Is that correct?
Not. Right, and I'll clarify this to make it easier for everyone. First of all, no one owns a corporation. No one, period, ever. I'd love to send you some of the text I've used teaching my classes on this issue. It's impossible to own a corporation. A corporation is a series of contracts and agreements and not much more than anything else. Never has been. anything more than anything else, okay? I know people like to refer to corporations as owners, but they're not. Nonetheless, Mr. Kenton is not a part of that corporation. The shares are held by another individual. As you see there, as you mentioned, their agent for service of process is in Memphis, and attorney-client privilege tells me I can't tell you who that is.
Okay, and I'm not too worried about that, but when the issue I'm more worried about is, are you aware that Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated is not registered with the Tennessee Board for Licensing Contractors?
Well, no, nor has Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated provided anything in a county that requires that. Sumner County doesn't. Wilson County doesn't. It's a big issue.
Okay. Well, I guess my concern, though, is there's no license for this company. And what is Mr. Kenton's association with Tennessee Metal Roofing?
Right now, he has none. Right now, Mr. Kenton, because of the news reports, doesn't work for anybody.
Okay. Well, and I know I don't think you and I have discussed this, but the contract that was subject to the complaint with Mary Lynn Norman, are you aware of that case?
Yeah, I've heard that name, and hold on, I even think I have some documentation on it. Just bear with me. Okay, Norman. Yeah, there it is. Okay.
And you're aware that your client, James Kenton, individually, signed a consent order in which he had admitted to working on that case without a home improvement contractor license on a project that exceeded $3,000 in Davidson County. Is that correct?
Yes. And again, according to that new ruling last year by the Tennessee Supreme Court, and I'll give you the site for it as soon as I find it. Mr. Kenton doesn't mean Mr. Kenton's an employee of Tennessee Model Roofing. Like any commissioned salesperson or service provider or intermediary, it has nothing to do with him. It's not, again, this Tennessee Metal Roofing is an incorporated business. Mr. Kenton facilitated the business, no question about it. Is his name on any contract? No. If you look at Ms. Norman's materials, there's nothing there. Hold on. Let me just double check something. I just want to make sure I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth. It doesn't taste good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah. There's a. Okay. And you wrote to Tennessee Metal Roofing Inc. and they responded that you did not write to James Kenton on June 11th, 2020.
And under that contract, well, I guess since then, Mr. Kenton has become licensed. Is that correct?
Yeah, you issued the license.
Right. And he is not. Is he allowing his license to be used by work for Tennessee Metal Roofing?
Not at present, Mr. Let me tell you that all these corporations at present are defunct because of what we've seen on television. Corporations that have put on numerous roofs with happy customers. I mean, I looked at the Better Business Bureau report. It was just incredible, and there were a total of 3 complaints out of I don't know how many happy customers. They had an A+ rating, and I don't, so someone complained. Okay, so you're looking into the complaint. That's your job. I understand that. That's completely reasonable. However, sometimes people complain about things all the time. I mean, I'm a lawyer. You're a lawyer. We hear people complaining about things all the time. Doesn't mean any of them are actionable. And if it was actionable, she could have brought a civil suit, which wasn't done. As far as the consent order, I advise Mr. Kenton to pay the $1,000 and just forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
to advise his client, Tennessee Metal, to pay the $1,000 and forget about it.
When you talk about these other companies on the Better Business Bureau, what company name specifically are you looking at?
Tennessee Metal Roofing Inc.
Okay,
Now,
that's the only one.
Yep, they recently took that down, said for product review or something like that. And me, in my not thinking they would do that, didn't have the opportunity to copy the entire site.
Okay. And when you're talking about some of those good reviews, are there any complaints or criminal actions that were brought against your
Nope.
client or Tennessee Metal Roofing that you're aware of?
Okay. Well, I mean, there's the three complaints I know of were Jennifer Bracey, were Mr. Stevens, who is attempting to bring a criminal complaint without any compliance at all. Okay, this is so far-fetched. It's incredible. And before this is even levied, I spoke to the detective, and he agreed with me. The problem is the detective got a little bit antsy about something, and I'm not sure, because at that point, Mr. Kenton was going to. I wanted Mr. Kenton to press charges against Mr. Stevens for filing a false police report, but he said, no, just let it go. It's not important. He still has that option. Okay, but again, what happened? Well, somehow they put James Kenton on there. He's not on any contracts. Okay, they didn't put Tennessee Metal Roofing. And if you read the statute, they think they're going to, which, by the way, is a carpetbagger statute. It's not the actual statute that would control the situation, which not only is a state statute, but is a federal statute which would preempt anything in 26 CFR. How Mr. Kenton got there in the first place is still beyond my comprehension. I've been a lawyer a pretty long time.
Okay, but he was arrested as part of that. Is that correct?
He was arrested individually. Tennessee Metal Roofing Inc. wasn't even on there. Now I'm going to tell you that was a warrantless arrest. They had no warrant when they showed up to his house. They had everything I've seen in the warrant was incorrect, numbers, dates, everything. And if you look at if you allow me to finish, please. And if you look at the contract, it's very clear that it complies with the FTC 3-day cooling rule. Even though it doesn't have to, it does it anyway. And they provide a form. You want to cancel this agreement? Go ahead. Now, what's interesting about this is that this all of a sudden came to light after I had sent a demand letter to Mr. Stevens about either letting them finish the job or pay the bill. And then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, we hear from a police officer.
Okay. And that criminal case is still pending. Is that correct?
Yeah, October 9th. I anticipate it will be dismissed.
Okay. And was that who brought those charges in? That wasn't Miss Bracey, correct?
No, that was Mr. Stevens.
That's right. Miss Bracey, one of the other complainants to the department, she brought civil charges against Mr. Kenton. Is that correct?
Right, and there's 7 or 8 counter complaints against her.
Mm-hmm. And those are pending as well.
Because she
correct?
went again, same thing. We even have a signed document from her that she was completely satisfied with the work provided by Tennessee Metal Roofing Inc.
Okay, I was just getting at the fact that those are pending, though.
Those are both pending, yes.
Okay.
Right, one's October 9th, the other's October 29th. I anticipate the 9th will be dismissed. The 29th, the court actually doesn't have jurisdiction, so I suspect that will be dismissed or transferred to another court.
Okay. Does he have any other pending criminal or civil matters at this time? Mr. Kenton,
not that I
Tennessee
know
Metal
of.
Roofing.
No.
Okay.
Again, usually I don't care, but when I saw what happened with Mr. Kenton being arrested personally, it made my blood boil because everyone somewhere in their life has probably been accused of something they didn't do or had nothing to do with. I remember me. It was I got in trouble for throwing a snowball, and I grew up in Syracuse. Throwing a snowball into a bus. There was only one problem. I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So when I see things like this, it tends to make me a tad aggravated, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand.
Chairman, this is Reeve Smith. We're hearing entirely too much. If this goes to formal, I don't know if any of us can even sit in, but all of a sudden we're having a trial right here instead of just answering a complaint.
Well, I was just I'm answering the questions as best I can. I'm sorry.
And that's the last thing that I have. I think that the board would still be able to hear this at a formal hearing, because if there is a summary suspension issued, it would basically be a continuation at a formal hearing of those issues. We'd be looking at a suspension pending a revocation or formal suspension hearing. So today's issue is whether or not emergency action exists. I don't have any other questions for Mr. Calvert. Does anyone from the board have any questions?
Reese, do you have a specific question or anything, or just anybody have any comments?
No, I don't.
Oh, I don't.
So Jesse, what do we need to do? Carolyn?
So the next step, I suppose, unless Mr. Calvert has any evidence or any other thing that he wanted to bring to light, the next step would be to choose whether or not that, and I'll pull the statute up just so we look at the factors, but whether or not public health, safety, or welfare imperatively requires emergency action, which would be a suspension of the license.
Isn't in an emergency action? I'm sorry. Can you specifically define that for me, just so I know what the heck we're talking about?
So under the statute, there's not a further discussion as to what I guess qualifies as an emergency action. But I think what they mean by emergency action is not following the typical suspension revocation procedures that are under TCA section 45312 for contested hearings.
Okay. Well, again, any action that you've referred to, Marilyn Norman, Jennifer Bracey, who, let me remind you, is in Sumner County, and void of jurisdiction requiring a license. Matter of fact, I did send you a letter about that. I'm still waiting for the response. And the charges levied against Mr. Kenton personally are, again, with corporations. How Mr. Kenton got into these as an individual, that's a really good question. And that's obviously going to come up at a later date in other proceedings.
Mm-hmm. And I do think the issue as to whether or not public health, safety, or welfare requires emergency action really focuses on the issues with this license application and the way that the license was issued. Because if you look at the statutes, I think that there are grounds potentially for a formal hearing based on statements that were made in this application for the home improvement contractor's license. But to go back to what you had asked, Mr. Smith, the board needs to make a determination as to whether or not public health, safety, or welfare requires a suspension of this license without using the formal suspension or revocation procedures of setting a formal hearing. And then if so, the next step, I suppose, would be setting this matter for a formal hearing at a later date.
Okay, this is Randy Chase. So do we have a motion by anyone to move forward with suspending the license?
Randy, this is Mark. Jesse, could you go over what the accusations are from these two complaints?
From who?
From the two complaints that have been filed.
So the first allegation, the first complaint that we received, and that's the one that was settled with the consent order, was for contracting, home improvement contracting without a license. That was before the license was granted. The second one,
it had already been applied for, correct?
And that's already been granted. He has received.
Okay.
He has received his license for after that. The second one, I believe, was also there were some issues, some questions about. I'll pull this up. I believe this is. They had stated that they had a defective roof. Some other concerns about workmanship. This specific complaint, though, was not in a home improvement contractor county. So I believe the board actually ended up addressing that because it wasn't in a home improvement contractor county, although there were some questions about workmanship, I think that was where the issue hinged, was whether a license was required for that work because it was under $25,000. And then the third complaint, the one that was administratively opened, was based on the concerns for potentially contracting in a license that's not, or a name that's not on the license. That's that Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated, making false statements on the application, which would be the allegations about not disclosing the prior complaints, the prior license revocation. And then there were some concerns that were noted. We're still doing a little bit of research on that, but there were some other concerns noted about whether or not if Mr. Kenton is doing business as Tennessee Roofing Incorporated, his website makes, or that website makes statements about having employees potentially, and Mr. Kenton's license is a sole proprietor with no workers compensation. So
That
there
is
was some.
correct. There are no employees, and that website has since been transferred to someone else. At least it should have been by now.
Mm-hmm. So those were the allegations.
He will no longer be the owner because because the damage that's been done to him is extensive, and it's pointless to put a lot of independent contractors out of business because of the television damage that's been done to Tennessee Metal Roofing Inc. So Mr. Kenton is no longer associated with that and has given anything that he's helped them with over to the new owners.
We can suspend the license. Nobody's hurt.
I'm sorry?
He's not associated with it. We can go ahead and suspend the license. Doesn't bother him.
Suspend whose license?
Jesse, is he continuing to work under another name, or is he?
No.
I wasn't asking you. I was asking Mr. Gentry.
I don't have evidence of that. I do have a concern. I think Mr. Calvert could answer this. When we had received the check for this consent order, the $1,000, it was signed for by James Kenton, but it was a company check from Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated.
Yeah, just like anyone with accounting authority, that's not unusual.
So he's a subcontractor with accounting authority.
Independent contractor, there's a difference.
He's an independent contractor with accounting authority of this company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think that's the crux of the issues that would potentially be discussed for whether or not emergency action is necessary. It's the prior complaints, the prior license revocation, if the board believes that Mr. Kenton was associated with that company, and then the issues regarding this new company, Tennessee Metal Roofing Incorporated, if the board felt like, or the board believed that Mr. Kenton was associated with that company and doing business as that company, and that public welfare would require suspension of the license.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've got a physician calling me on another line.
Well, it's suspended until when?
Until we would be able to set it for a revocation or a more formal suspension hearing. And it would just depend on, I suppose, our schedule. So I suppose the November board date.
That's what the state's requesting of the board today.
Yes.
Suspend until then.
Yes.
You're looking for a motion.
Yeah, I think we need to make a motion.
I'm going to put you on mute for a second. I'm sorry. I have to deal with this physician. It's very important.
It's okay. You don't have to do anything. I'll make that motion. Let's go on with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, and I agree.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Carolyn, do we need to do a roll call to suspend the license until a formal hearing down the road?
Yes, I need to know who made the second. Was that Keith?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Mark Brudd,
Yes.
Benny Jones,
Yes.
Reese Smith,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
and Mary Rice.
Yes.
I think just for formalities, we may need almost like a statement of necessity, just someone from the board just making a statement as to, or a finding about whether or not the public's safety or welfare or health requires this immediate action.
Okay. Mark, do you or Reese want to make that statement, or you want me to try to make it? What do y'all want to do? Keith?
I'll defer to you.
Well, I think we all agree that it's the, consumers' welfare, just based on, we don't want somebody like this out there continuing to do poor work and not responding to issues and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, from what you read, and what Jesse's saying, the complaints were saying that people spent a lot of money to get their roof repaired and had to go out and hire another company to get their roof completed, et cetera, et cetera. We don't want, as a board, that to be happening to other people in the community. So therefore, we are suspending the license to make sure that doesn't happen. And we will proceed on to a formal hearing if that is necessary. Is that good enough, Jesse?
I think so. Is there any statement, I guess, regarding any of the, I suppose, the statements on the application or the procurement of the license?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answers to the questions about work in other states by employees or the corporation or whatever, it was obvious to the board that he was affiliated with that company in Massachusetts, and he filled out the application in a fraudulent manner by answering those questions the way that he did, and so that again sort of lends itself to being mindful of the consumers in the state of Tennessee.
In David's, in the couple counties, in the 2 or 3 counties in Tennessee.
We're through with presentations. This is just board discussion right
Okay, sorry.
I think that pretty much covers it. I will draft an order of summary suspension then, and I will send it to Mr. Chase, the chairman, and I'll send you a copy as well, Mr. Calvert, as counsel.
Okay.
And then I believe the board's next meeting is November. Carol, you may have to help me with this. I don't have it in front of me.
November 17th.
November 17th would be the next board meeting. So I will take the steps to make sure everything is presented for a formal hearing. If we have to set at a later board date, I can talk to Mr. Calvert about that
Okay.
and potentially doing that if we need to do that by agreement. But I don't know if we know that hearings via WebEx yet or in person, but I will make sure that the respondent is appropriately given notice for all of that.
And will I have the opportunity to subpoena witnesses such as Ms. Norman and Ms. Bracey?
Yes.
Okay. Good. That's a good thing.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Any other discussion? Or are we ready to? What's that? Ready to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Who is this?
Well, this is just someone who joined. I thought this was the number to listen to that when new applicants would be reviewed, and I had trouble logging on to the computer. That were new applicants reviewed. Is that already finished?
That was earlier this morning, and we're in the process of issuing those licenses. But you can call me after the meeting and I'll give you an update.
Okay, because I listened this morning too. I must have missed it somehow. But can I get your number, or is that? Can you share that?
Yes, it's 615-741-8307.
Okay, thank you. I'll call you in just a couple minutes.
Okay. Do we need to vote to adjourn, or can we just adjourn?
Jesse, did they need to vote?
Let's go ahead and just vote. Why not?
Yeah.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion.
I second the motion. This is Benny.
Fred,
Yes.
Benny Jones, Reese Smith,
Reese?
I believe he's, Keith Whittington. Okay. Keith
Yes.
Whittington and Randy Chase.
Yes.
I'll adjourn.
All
All right.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Have a good day.